Hey everyone, how's it going? Cloud here, and welcome to my guide on the Bird Slayer monster assignment. Now, if you're watching this guide, you're here for one of two reasons. Either you're aiming for 99 Slayer and want the best method to dealing with this Slayer monster, or if you're already 99 Slayer and you're aiming for 120, you're wanting the best methods to capture this monster's soul for your codex. Whatever reason you are here, this guide is for you. So, in this guide we'll be going through the following: the requirements to be assigned this monster as a task, which Slayer master assigns them and how many, best locations for the most effective kills, strategies and weaknesses of the monster, recommended equipment from highest to lowest, tips and tricks to obtain the soul for your codex or dungeon, social Slayer and its rewards, and key drops to collect, including handy items to help with this. Now, if you have obtained 99 Slayer but haven't started the Sunken Pyramid or Slayer Codex yet, make sure you click the annotation to view that video before watching this one. Now, you can choose to watch a certain part of this guide if you wish, or you can click the play all option. Make sure you have annotations turned on. Okay, so for the Bird Slayer assignment, it's actually a bland monster type as many enemies come under the birds category. So what I'll be doing, I'll be talking about a low level version of this assignment and a high level version of this assignment, and you can choose which of these you're going to go for. I will note that both of these will contribute to the Slayer soul, so you don't have to worry about that. So for the low level monster, I would recommend chickens. Now, chickens will count towards the Bird Slayer assignment, so a little bit of information about them. They are level 1 with only 50 life points, so a pretty easy enemy, and there's no actual Slayer level required to be able to fight them. And the weakness against chickens is fire spells. However, at this stage, any form of combat is going to be most effective against them. And for the high level monster to count towards this Slayer assignment, I would recommend Terror Birds. Now, don't get these confused with the mutated Terror Birds, as they are a separate Slayer assignment. If you fight the normal Terror Birds, they will count towards the Bird Slayer assignment. So a little bit of information around them. They are level 42 and have 1500 life points, so slightly stronger. There's no actual Slayer requirement to be able to fight these as well. In terms of the Terror Birds' weaknesses, they are most weak against air spells, so magic is going to be your most recommended form of combat for these guys. So there we go, that's two forms of monsters that will both count towards the Bird Slayer assignment. So if you're just starting off, I would probably recommend just going for the chickens unless you're a decent level, and if you're after the Slayer soul, I would highly recommend going after the Terror Birds. So the only Slayer master to assign birds as a Slayer assignment is Churail. Now, he can be found in Tavley, about southeast from the Tavley Lodestone, and you'll obviously see the Slayer icon on your minimap. If you completed the Wild Gothic Sleep quest, he will be replaced by Spira. So Churail requires no Slayer level or combat level in particular to be able to be assigned these monsters as a task. This is your starting point if you're just beginning with Slayer. And for your assignment, he'll assign you anywhere between 15 to 50 birds to kill. So for the next part of this guide, I will show you the best locations for both the chickens and the Terror Birds, depending on which one you're going to go after. So for the chickens, there's two locations I recommend, and it's up to you which of these you go for. However, one of them does have a requirement. So for the first chicken location, there is a farm which is north of Lumbridge, and literally all the chickens are scattered outside there. Now, the good thing about that is obviously as they're all in close proximity of one another, and it's quite a sort of open space area, using magic here will be effective, as you'll be able to kill a majority of them in one hit, especially if you're using Evolution of Combat style magic. The only sort of downside to this area is obviously as it's a very sort of starting point, you may find a few people around here trying to kill chickens as well, so that might be requiring you to hop worlds several times to be able to find an empty one. But other than that, it's a pretty good location. The only other location there is that I would recommend is the Champions Guild, and that can be found southwest of the Varrock Lodestone. Now, the Champions Guild requires you to have started the Dragon Slayer quest, which requires 32 quest points in order to start. So unless you have 32 quest points and started Dragon Slayer, you will not be able to go in here, but I imagine the majority of you will have done this. Now, the only downside to this area is there's not as many chickens in this bit as there is to the Lumbridge area. However, you're less likely to find other players in this bit, so it kind of minimises the interruption you'll get while fighting these as a Slayer assignment. So as for the Terror Birds, there's only really one location I would recommend, and that's actually within the Tree Gnome Stronghold. So there's a Terror Bird pen to the far west of the Tree Gnome Stronghold. So easiest way to get here is if you have access to the Spirit Trees, which requires the completion of Tree Gnome Village, you can teleport to the Tree Gnome Stronghold using any Spirit Tree from across RuneScape. Easiest one to get to is there's one in the Varrock Grand Exchange. If not, you have to walk to the Tree Gnome Stronghold from Ardougne Lodestone will be the next closest location. Either way, when you're in the stronghold, head directly to the west, you'll go over a little bridge and there's a load of terror birds in a pen. So again, this is the most recommended area if you're fighting these as your bird slayer assignment. So I mentioned at the beginning part of this guide that chickens are most weak against fire spells, so obviously the best strategy to go here is using magic. However, I did mention that obviously because they're such a low level it may not be required. However, what I would say is if you are using magic and obviously fire spells and using the evolution of combat, you can use the ability known as chain, and that allows your spell to hit multiple targets in sort of a close proximity. So the only handy thing about using fire here is if you could keep using that ability, it will enable you to pretty much kill 6 or 7 chickens in one go. You've also got some other multiple hitting magic abilities such as the Dragon Breath attack and then the 100% one, which is Tsunami. So by using the magic on the chickens and using these abilities, you're just going to dispatch them pretty quick. Now again, in terms of strategies for the Terror Birds, so they have a similar weakness, however they are weak to air spells, but again really similar to what I said about the chickens is you can use these multiple hitting abilities like Chain and Dragon Breath to be able to take on more than one Terror Bird at once, and even though a bit more stronger than the standard chickens, they're not going to take that many hits to kill. So that would be the real sort of strategy I'd say here, is if you keep grouping them together and using those multiple hitting abilities, your Slayer assignment will be completed much more quicker. So for this next segment of the guide, I'm just going to show you what I would recommend as sort of low level gear, medium level gear and high level gear for these Slayer assignments. So obviously if you've already obtained 99 Slayer and you're just trying to obtain the soul, you're going to have more likelihood of having the higher gear than those of you who are literally just starting with 99 Slayer and obviously only just starting the game. So I'll show a screenshot of my character with the relevant gear for low, medium and high level sort of players, and it will also detail what those items are and what sort of the perks of having them. Ultimately, it is your choice what you go with, and naturally the higher the gear, the faster and easier the kills are going to be. So in terms of tips and tricks, the only real tip I have for the chickens is if you use the aerial loot ability, and all that enables you to do is just to collect a large amount of loot in one go. The only things that I would say recommend collecting are feathers and bones. If you've obviously got a bone crusher equipped, you'll automatically bury those bones. That's quite helpful if you're low level trying to bump your prayer level up, and obviously the raw chicken meat is worth collecting as well. However, if you are intending on collecting this loot, obviously you're going to require to go back and forth from the bank, which will slow down your assignments. You may just choose to collect the stackable items, and I wouldn't recommend using things like magic note paper, as the value of the loot does not weigh up to the price of the loot paper if you're going to buy it from the Grand Exchange. Now in terms of tips and tricks for the soul, the main thing for when hunting a soul is there's a few different factors. So every kill has a chance of trapping a soul, and it's affected by the base Slayer level compared to the creature's required Slayer level to kill. So obviously in this case you don't need a Slayer level for chickens or terror birds, so the higher Slayer level you are, the more likelihood you're going to capture it. And obviously this does include now being able to go up to 100, 101, 102 Slayer, etc. Being on a Slayer assignment for the monster also doubles the chance of trapping the soul, so it is worthwhile trying to get assigned these as a task, as it will just make it easier. One other handy note is if you're already at level 120 Slayer like myself, the chance to catch a soul is the same as if the player was on a task, so it does mean you've got even more likelihood, but obviously not many of you are going to be at that stage. But to be honest, with the chickens, I think I obtained the soul after sort of my 15th kill, which only took a couple of seconds because they're so low level. Obviously do make sure you've got your Ushabti with you, otherwise you will not be able to capture the soul, and if you need more of those you can get them back at the Sunken Pyramid. So I want to quickly talk about Social Slayer. So Social Slayer is a thing you can do with a friend, and basically it involves you both having the Slayer assignment between you both and being shared. Now, in the instance that obviously you're trying to train to level 99 Slayer, this can be quite handy as it allows you to get through more assignments quicker, and obviously that means more rewards. But also you can get actual Slayer co-op points as well, which can be used for additional rewards. Now, myself and my good friend Thomas, aka Rune Movie, he's Mario Sonic, we're doing all these Slayer assignments together to be able to complete both our dungeons. So you can also do it that way as well. If you and your friend are both wanting to do the Sunken Pyramid together, you can obviously do this. How you go about doing this is either with your Slayer gem or Slayer helmet. You need to right click it and choose the co-op options and invite your friend to join a co-op Slayer party with you. But do take note that once you've both joined, you need to stay in close proximity of each other, and if either of you log out, you'll both be sort of left from the group. So once you're both in a Slayer group, if you then ask a Slayer Master for an assignment, you'll both have that assignment to do between the two of you. Now, in terms of actually obtaining the soul, I don't think it affects the statistics of getting them, aka you can still get a Slayer soul as a co-op Slayer assignment, but obviously there will be less monsters between the two of you to kill, as for example, Shirel will assign a max of 50 birds, so you'll have 25 each, best case scenario. However, I did think I would mention it to you guys in case some of you do not know about it, as some of the reward points can be used for things like being able to use food on your partner, you both sharing protective equipment, you're sharing the effects of restoration from portents through divination. So there's quite a few handy things you can use together if you've got a co-op Slayer assignment. So in terms of key drops to collect, so obviously chickens 100% of the time drop bones and raw chicken. As I mentioned in the tips and tricks bit, if you have a bone crusher, that's quite handy because the bones themselves aren't worth much on the grand exchange, but if you've got it equipped or added to your tool belt, you'll automatically bury the bones, which will just be player experience that you wouldn't have gained if you didn't have it. Obviously feathers will be one of the main things to collect because A, they're stackable, and B, they're always dropped, and they'll be in quantities of 5, 10 or 15, so I definitely recommend doing that. There is also a random thing that can happen after you kill a certain amount of chickens. A chicken will drop from the sky saying that I have returned, and if you kill that chicken it will drop an offhand rubber chicken, which is a very rare item to come across, but likelihood of that happening is quite small. Now for the terror birds, they don't actually really drop anything other than the bones, which again, if you've got the bone crusher, they'll automatically bury them, and a very rare drop from the terror birds is a cornucopia. Now a cornucopia is an object that can be used to store food, and it can store a maximum of 1,000 life points worth of food, so it's just one of those handy items to collect if you do get it. So that is it for my guide on the Bird Slayer assignment. So I know obviously it's a very basic Slayer monster to be assigned as a task, and the likelihood of many of you watching this guide is quite small, but myself and Thomas are working on doing all the low level ones first, and then we'll start working our way up, so there'll be guides on a lot higher level Slayer monsters to be assigned as tasks. So there will be guides to come which will have information on higher Slayer monsters to kill as tasks, and those will all be available under my Slayer assignment playlist, so make sure you check those out. Obviously everything that I mentioned in this guide is recommended. You don't have to stick to it, and you can obviously choose to do things slightly different. However, this would be sort of my best way of doing things if I was to now go and try and get 120 Slayer all over again. But thank you very much for watching today. Please make sure you like, favourite, comment, subscribe, and don't forget to share with your friends. Thanks everyone, and happy slaying.